Well, hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fully Alive podcast. My name is Michael Brusicki. This is my amazing wife,
Megan.
I guess I could say your name sometimes.
You could, yeah.
I just let you say that part. But
I'm Megan.
You are Megan.
That's me.
You're Megan. Incredible. Hey, we are excited to bring you this episode today. If all goes planned, you are listening to this. If you're listening to it when it drops, it's around Valentine's Day. It might be Valentine's Day.
Right.
And the truth is, a lot of people have a different opinion about Valentine's Day. Yeah. Some people love it. Some people hate it. We're not going to really talk about Valentine's Day per se, but we thought it'd be good to talk about relationships a little bit, dating, a little bit about marriage. So if you're single or married, we hope it'll help your life. And have a little fun to start with some questions and thinking about our relationship. Who would you say is more romantic?
You are.
What does that mean?
I don't know. I think it's your personality. Like, you're just more like dreamy, romantic. I'm more just like practical. Yeah. I don't know.
Our kids are like that. Some of our kids where we dream big, like everything's going to be the most incredible thing. Right. And you're probably more like, well, let's just do this wisely. Yes. Yeah, that's probably how that
practical.
Yeah,
yes,
that's great.
Versus dreamer. Who's more likely to plan a surprise for the other? My initial reaction was to say you, but then I was like, I actually plan surprises.
I think that I might think of it, but I don't know that I would do it. What you did for my 40th birthday, still stands as probably as an adult, the most incredible surprise anything I've ever received. So,
well, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And actually, I even then reflect on another birthday just surprise that you did for me years ago. So, yeah, I think that you do a good job. I think it's more likely to be you.
Who's better at planning dates?
Me.
Yeah.
I think me.
Mm-hmm. That's the dreamer versus the practical.
Right. I think, yeah. and I think, though, we'll hit this in a minute, but we would both say that as the husband, I'm supposed to plan the dates. Mm-hmm. So I probably feel a bit of that where I might wish that you planned the dates, but it's probably more
I think it's okay that both people plan dates, but I also think it's good for you to plan the dates.
It can be both of us, but really it would be better. It would be better if it's you. Hey, let's talk about some practical things to help us. Why is setting aside time to connect so important, no matter if you're in the early dating season or you've been married for decades? What would we say?
Because life is busy and full and it gets in the way, and it doesn't get in the way. I shouldn't say that. That makes it sound negative. But it's busy and full, and you have to be intentional to make time to connect. I think, you have to have conversation and intimacy to keep growing. Right. In your relationships. And so if you don't intentionally set aside time for that, your time just gets filled up with other things, especially when you end up with having kids and you have jobs and you have friends and you have commitments and roles outside of the home that sometimes those relationships, specifically a marriage, can be like, well, yeah, it's going to always be there, but it's not always going to be there if we don't prioritize it and feed it and fuel it.
And I think about that specifically, time to connect. Mm-hmm. You can communicate, but you might not necessarily be connecting as
my gosh,
romantically or as husband and wife. And so I think it's really important to know we're connecting as I don't want to be dramatic, but as soulmates. We're connecting as in that oneness, which isn't, hey, who's picking which kid up at what time? Yeah. How are we going to handle our schedule?
Communicating the details of
vision for church, right? Yeah. All the things that, because we lead we do everything together. It doesn't mean we're physically together all the time, but we lead the church together. We parent together. So we have loads of things to talk about.
Right.
That's not necessarily, hey, we're connecting right now. And so I think that we have to be intentional with that, or we lose the relationship of marriage, and you can be just co-parents, you can just be co-leaders, you can just be co-business partners, whatever you do. And so the marriage has to stay in that true connection.
Yeah. And I think what you said, that we do a lot together. We're involved in leading together, we're in parenting together, we're doing all these things together. We could just there could be an assumption that we're just always connected, which
Right.
actually is not true if we're not intentional about
That's
it.
very true. Yeah. Which is the danger of proximity, right?
Right.
Familiarity, I think familiarity for this conversation today, we're talking about marriage, but familiarity in any context, it could be, at work with your leaders, familiarity, it can just cause honor to go away. And one of the things that's so important is that we honor each other, right? And because we honor each other, we make time to connect with each other.
Right.
And I think that that's harder, more challenging when you can find yourself more familiar. Discuss how cultural expectations create pressure around dating or being single, and how to approach these situations.
Cultural expectations.
My note is Valentine's Day is stupid.
Valentine's Day is odd, isn't it?
It's interesting.
It kind of brings this like heightened awareness that comes with so much expectation that for not really any reason.
Yeah.
Other than like cards and candy and
it's called like Single
stuff.
Awareness Day, right?
Yeah,
Some people
I'm
call
sure
it that. Or something. I mean, I know our little kids, our younger kids, it just causes us to have to go buy things. We have to go buy candy and Valentine's, and then we have to stay up late. Well, not we. Megan has to stay up late, making sure and getting it all set up for them to take the class and get all that ready. I think what I think is important for us is when it comes to dating and marriage, don't let others set the expectation. Don't let culture set the expectation for what you're supposed to do. We're Christians, we're going to come at this from a perspective that God, the scriptures start, there's several passages I think of in the Bible. Ephesians chapter 5 speaks to husbands and wives, and Jesus talks about the coming together and becoming one. There's some certain things that the scriptures give us for expectations. Let those be your guide, and let's don't find ourselves falling into the trap that says, well, this is what culture said you have to do, and know each other. Right. Because one of my spiritual heroes, one of my just mentors, he said something to me one time, and hopefully this will make sense to tie this together, but his wife, who he was married to for decades, passed away suddenly, and he got remarried, and he's been married now for over 10 years. And after his first year of marriage, after his previous wife had passed, he said that he had to learn how to be a husband to his new wife. He knew what to do to be a good husband for his previous spouse. And I think that's what I think about with cultural expectations. I need to know what you need from me, not what the culture said my wife needs from me. That's good. And so that has to be within the context of your relationship. And we haven't been single as adults for the most part. We got married pretty young. So what I like to encourage single people with is just simply take the pressure off. Culture will try to put pressure on, and just take the pressure off. Yeah. Right. I agree. I think cultural expectations are hard in all areas. I think this is just one area where we feel it. We all feel a cultural expectation, or we feel like our friends are doing this or whatever. And I think that when we let cultural expectations lead us, we end up in places we don't want to be, I think so. When it comes to dating, I think seeking God, asking God to lead you in who you should date and who you should marry, and really thinking through, in dating specifically, really thinking through like a partner for life, not just this person I really like to be with right now because they're fun and great or whatever, but like thinking through a partner for life. This is someone you're partnering with for life. And so, in marriage, you mentioned, being the spouse that your spouse needs, right? You have to know each other to know that. You have to learn some things about my spouse, not just, well, my friend said this, which is great. You can learn things from other people, but like knowing your spouse, knowing what their love language is, knowing what makes them feel loved, takes time.
Like
Right.
we did get married young. We were 22 and 23, and we have a lot of years of figuring out how to be husband and wife.
We know everything now.
And no, we're still learning. But one of the things that I think we've had to figure out is just because I'm showing you love in the way that I receive love doesn't mean you're going to feel
Right.
loved by that.
Right.
I can keep trying to love you the way that I feel loved, and it may not work because you're not receiving it that way. And so loving another person is about them, not me.
So good. That's so good. Can you say that again? Loving another person.
Loving another person is about them, not about me.
Right. And I think that is that part of, counting others more value than yourself, not to devalue yourself.
Right.
It's just elevating them. And I think that's such a key, certainly in marriage. And if you're dating somebody that you think you would want to marry, it's that, are you able to do that with this person? Because if you're in the relationship and you are letting selfishness lead, it's not going to turn out well. There's really no way around it. And, I think personally for me, in being very, very authentic, I mean, selfishness is probably the thing I struggle with the most still in the context of marriage, of I want my way.
And only child problems.
And so it's a challenge, sometimes. And I am thankful. I know God helps me. I have friends in my life that encourage me, and you give me a lot of grace in that area. Hey, why are date nights important, even if you've been married for a long time?
I think because what we said earlier is we just get going in the rhythm of life, and we're together and we're doing stuff and we're running kids to games and all, whatever. We're in the day-to-day life, but we still have to prioritize this. Just
Right.
the you and me, the talking about stuff that isn't schedule, budget, meal planning, whatever.
Right.
Like we have to dream together. Like what's
Right.
in your heart? What's God doing in you? I just had a conversation with someone this week, and they were telling me, that they started husband and wife. They've been married a long time. I don't know, probably over 30 years, over 20 years at least. That they started reading the Bible together for the first time and like having conversations together.
So
and they
good.
talked about like feeling this next level of spiritual intimacy, that they were having these kinds of conversations. Right. And I think those have to be intentional conversations. Right. There has to be outside of the everyday, running around living life. And so date nights are so important for that, because we just put aside all of those
Right.
things, the hats we wear, and we can just be us and
Right.
talk about dreams and plans and
Right.
what God's doing in our hearts.
And
So
I think
it matters to get out of the everyday routine.
I think that's so important of that demonstration of showing your spouse that you desire them. There's that old saying, I say this old saying, I don't know what else to call it, but I've heard it like, well, I told you I loved you when we got married, and if it changes, I'll let you know. Yeah. And it's like, that's absurd. But I think sometimes we can go in from that perspective. I told you one of my, and I failed to mention this on our recent habit podcast, but one of the habits I am committed to being better at in 2025 is I want to kiss you as soon as I arrive at home and as soon as I leave.
Before
day,
you leave.
Before I leave. That would be impossible. But because, it's just something sometimes like you can get in a habit or you're just like in a hurry and it's not that I don't love you. It's not that, but I want to make sure that I'm building habits into my life that more keep a demonstration to you of how much I desire you. So make sure you let me know how I'm doing at that. Hopefully you don't mind me kissing you, because that's great for me. Share stories of date nights that didn't go as planned, but were memorable anyway. This is fun. Let's go down.
Do you have one in mind?
I don't know. Let's go down a date night history journey, or dates, because I know we have dates, date nights. I mean, we've had some dates where we had blow up fights. So
those are really the ones that are coming to mind, where like we both thought we were about to go out and then a conversation just turned into a fight, and then you just kind of have to.
While you think about
grit
that,
your teeth.
Think of one that turned out maybe not great, but that wasn't that. I want to try to, while you're thinking about that, one thing that we have learned, and I think we're better at, We're going on a date night tonight, so I don't want the enemy to attack us in this area, so I'm a little bit nervous right now to say this, but we have had date nights that we allowed a silly argument or conflict to derail the whole night. We have had nights where we went on a date and we did not talk hardly at all because of some small little thing that one of us allowed to blow up inside and we held on to unnecessarily. I think that's one of the things that we have grown in a lot is to be able to go, this is just an attack of the enemy. This is silly. This is not something to let destroy tonight. I just wanted to encourage you, especially if you're married and you are working to date your spouse, be aware that the devil does not want you to date your spouse. He is going to throw a small little thing out there that's going to, and it's what John Bevere would call the bait of Satan. He's going to throw a little thing out there to try to get you a little offended or a little angry at your spouse, and recognize it and redirect it, squash it, because I do believe, I know God's purpose and plan is for that connection as we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that's true. I also think that sometimes those nights are symptoms that we're not spending enough time having conversation, that we're not as connected because there's unresolved conflict. There's something bubbling up that we have not been spending enough time together to resolve the conflict.
Because it's not that thing is not
it's not usually the thing. It's just that we haven't connected and had the conversations that we need to have. And I think you probably would disagree with this just because of your personality, but every date night isn't going to be the most epic date night.
I disagree. Agree to disagree.
It's okay. It's okay. Marriage is meant to be long.
Yeah.
We're meant to have many, many years. It's okay that every date night isn't epic.
Right.
We're prioritizing each other.
Right.
We're together. It might not be the best one ever, but there's another one. It's not,
Right.
That's probably where we're different, because I think your perspective is they should all be epic.
Right. Well, I just keep my expectations high. But I live from the perspective of I'm always going to keep my expectations high. I'm not going to lower my expectations so I don't get disappointed. I'd rather live with high expectations. Sometimes maybe I get a little disappointed, but I'm just going to keep them high, keep my faith going, because I also have a very short memory of failures, which is why it's probably hard for me when I think about what dates didn't go as planned, because I'm like, well, I probably don't remember those, but I remember really awesome ones.
Yeah.
Which is my personality, which I like, because I think it would be hard if I was wired differently. What's some of your favorite date nights we've done? Since neither one of us are.
I mean, honestly, my favorite dates are when we go and do something together. Yeah. Yes, I like to go out to dinner and have a conversation, and we like food. Everybody likes.
I like to eat food.
We like to eat food, but
a whole meal of food.
I think my favorites are when we do something active together, I think.
Mm-hmm. What do we do when it's cold? Because I was thinking about that tonight. We're probably just going to go out to eat, and I just was like, because it's
but for me,
degrees.
My other favorite date night is the kids go to grandma's house.
Yeah.
And we stay home and get takeout and curl up on the couch and watch a movie or whatever. Yeah. That's a fun one too. It's an enjoyable date night. Right. I don't know. That might sound boring to some people, but.
Yeah. I love adventure, like you were saying, date nights. We've done the adventure park together, which is fun, and working out together is fun. We had a
tennis or pickleball.
A long season of walking and running together, and then having lunch afterwards. So I think that's great. You talked about this a little bit, just about love languages and loving each other based on a love language. What has helped you, or what would help people be able to love and know how to know your spouse's love language and love in that way?
I think recognizing that it's not inauthentic to love someone the way they receive love, right? I think
that's good.
Just because it's not natural for you doesn't mean that it isn't genuine. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think because we don't have the same love language as you and I, and so I think it doesn't.
We don't know what your love language is. Well, just for all those that are in my state as a husband, I just want you to know, 20 years of marriage, and I do not know Megan's love language. And I have read all the books about love languages. We've taken the tests and assessments. And Yeah, it's fantastic. I just keep doing my best.
Just a complicated person. Just a complicated person. But I just, be a lifelong learner of your spouse and choose to love them, because love isn't, like I said earlier, it's not about me. Loving you isn't about me and what I get out of it. It's about how I'm loving you. And this applies to all relationships. It's not just marriage. I mean, this applies to loving your kids. Like if I refuse to love my kid the way they feel loved, and I just want to keep showing them love the way I want to, they're not going to feel loved.
Right.
But, and we have 5 kids. Like their love languages are different.
Yeah.
We have to choose to see them and love them enough to love them the way they receive love.
Yeah.
And it might be doing something that's outside my comfort zone. It might not be my favorite activity. It might not be my favorite thing, but I love you.
Right. Right. I think that too, on that, I would say you can find ways, if we, all these, but specific back to dating for a moment, you can find ways to be creative and try new things. And part of that, again, we've been married 20 years. There's discovery that needs to keep happening.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what it's going to be like when we've been married 40 years, but my hope is that there's still more discovery that we're making about each other. We're still discovering new things that are that we like to do together that we haven't done. And so I think it's important when it comes to dating to be creative, because there's seasons where I think nights are the best time to go on dates. Honestly, for us, I think that we've had seasons where daytime is the best time to make sure we have time together. And sometimes the date is you go to your room and you close the door because you can't get a babysitter for the kids, or something like that happens. And so you're like, go watch a movie. We're going to, go upstairs and have time alone. And so I think that you just have to find what works. To what you were saying earlier, it doesn't have to be grand. I know you were saying like, I want it to be epic, but don't not do it just because you feel like it's not epic. I think 5 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I know we talked about with our church, but when we walked through a pretty challenging time, 2017, I think it was 2018, having a consistent date night weekly that isn't as easy for us today at this stage of our life, to be honest, this season we're in. That's what helped us make it through.
Right.
Because we had to have it in that season. I always want that, but we're in a real, and it's just a season where weekly in the rhythm that how we had it doesn't work. Sometimes it's my travel, maybe Megan's travel, maybe some things with our children. So anyway, be real about it, communicate about it, and just know that.
And I think, finances can be hard sometimes. Totally. And we think, oh, I can't afford to go on dates. There's so many dates that we go on that are not.
Right.
They don't cost anything. Right. Like we walk. We love to just go for a walk together, go somewhere beautiful and walk together. We doesn't have to be just down the street in your own neighborhood or whatever. We work out together. We, go play pickleball or tennis or just do something. I think, specifically, I think it's valuable, whether you're dating or married, to do activities together. I think it reveals a lot about, if you're dating, it reveals people's character. Like when you do something competitive, when they fail, when they're whatever, like it reveals a lot about character, how you treat each other. And so doing activities together can show you a lot about a person. And then I think also when you're married, it's just really important to like laugh and relax and have fun and not take yourself so seriously.
So, what that makes me think of is doing a quick math in my head. We've lived in several houses. I think we have remodeled to some capacity the kitchen in 1, 2, 3, 4. At least 4 of the homes we've lived in, we've remodeled the kitchen. And that's a incredibly good practice if you want to just strengthen your marriage or fight well and learn how to make, when you get into that spot where you are picking things out and talking about things.
We've never built a house, and I don't know how people do the like whole house where you're like picking out every light fixture, every light switch, every flooring for every room. Like it's so many decisions.
Right.
I don't understand how people do it.
It's incredible.
Because one room is enough to overwhelm me.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's close this podcast today. What would you say to women, to wives, in just what would you say to women, to wives in their responsibility maybe, or how you would say, this is what I think, what you feel like your role is, how do I know I do my part in our relationship, in dating, so that you can confidently say, I'm doing my part. And then I'll say, here's what I feel like we need to do. I know that wasn't in the guide, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, no, it's okay. I guess I have my own perspective. I don't know that it's biblical that there are certain roles in how you date.
I didn't mean simply dating. I meant in marriage.
Oh, okay.
I mean, how you date is good.
Well, I just mean just for
do a good job.
I just think women, and I don't want to be stereotypical. I think sometimes we can just get busy with the things of life that we don't really make ourselves available to our husbands to show that we desire to go on dates, that we're making space in our calendar, we're making time, that, prioritizing time that is focused on us, on being available to just be together, have fun, to not be focused on the calendar or the checklist or the who's doing what when, or the kids. I mean, honestly, that for a lot of families, and I think maybe early in our marriage, that was hard for me, leaving the kids. I felt a strong sense of responsibility towards our kids, and I felt guilty leaving them. But recognizing that prioritizing our marriage is the best thing for our kids. I think sometimes women, we have to be willing to get the babysitter. We have to be willing to say, this is so important that I'm going to show my husband he's a priority. I'm going to show my kids that our marriage is a priority, that they cannot take the front seat. Yes, they might need a lot of our time, especially when they're little. They may need a lot of our hands-on energy when they're little, but they're only going to be in our home for a limited period of time. And it's us.
I think one of the most important things I've learned in 20 years, and like I said, I hope I learn. I know I have a lot to learn. But I would say specifically to husbands a few things. And again, if you're just dating, these don't apply. Some of these don't apply yet. These are talking about marriage, but some of the things that I know are true, things that are biblical. Husbands, you're the leader of your marriage. We're Christians, and so that's how God designed it. You're not the leader in an abusive way. You're not the leader it's not a dictatorship. We're to desire our wife's opinion. We are to desire their perspective, and a lot of times leading means that you go the direction your wife thinks to go. It doesn't mean that your way is always right. So, but you have to be the one that is comfortable and confident before God to lead that. We are designed to walk in roles. And you said just a minute ago, you said, I don't want to come across stereotypically, or I think that was what you said. Maybe that's what I heard. And we don't, because every marriage has to work the way it's supposed to work, right? It's not like this is exactly what it has to be, but there are some things that I'll speak for the men. Husbands, you're responsible for. And so lead the way God called you to lead, and your marriage will be stronger.
Yeah.
Any final thought?
Yeah. Well, just thinking about you saying that, I think women want our husbands to lead. Women want their husbands to be the romantic husband. They want them to be the leader. They want them to plan things. But if you're in a situation where that's not what your experience is, I just encourage you to be an encourager to your husband, not a critic.
That's so good.
Criticizing your husband for not leading, complaining about your husband for not leading will not make him a better leader. Yeah. It will just beat him up and he will quit trying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I see happen. I see, and I think that we have to show our husbands that we want them to lead. We have to make them know that we love them and we want them, you know, in our home when they come home, when they're to spend time with them, you know. And I just think that there's a way that we can fuel that with respect and love and desire for them to lead without criticizing.
Yeah, so good. Love it. Hey, no matter what, and just as we talk about on this podcast, it's true for your marriage. It can be a full marriage. It can be a fully alive marriage. And our relationship has not been, and it won't be in the future without challenges and without moments. But I know we're stronger and we're more united, and our outlook on the future stays stronger because we keep moving more and more in the direction God would have for our marriage. So whatever world you find yourself in, single, dating, married, put Jesus at the center, follow his plan for your relationships, and I guarantee you it will be way better than it would be in any other scenario. Thanks for tuning in today.